Hello and welcome to this Versus Education interview with Tom Wood of eLearn. Oh, I'm sorry, I just messed up your company's name already, of RWA eLearning. Sorry about that, Tom.
That's
Thank you very
fine.
much in advance for joining us.
That's great. It's good to see you.
So Tom, you are with RWA eLearning in England, and maybe you could just start off by giving our audience a little bit of background on your company and the work that y'all are doing.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we've been established for about 20 years now in the UK. We've started off as a training and development consultancy for the insurance broking market and the financial services world over here. It's a regulated market. We have the Financial Conduct Authority who makes sure that the insurance brokers are doing the job that they should be doing and doing it in a competent way. Part of that then is we developed an e-learning system roughly about 10 years ago, which focused more around assessment rather than learning. So we wanted to identify where the gaps were in people's knowledge. So it's about risk assessment, risk management. And as an extension of that, then we've developed online learning tools, face-to-face learning tools, which help the insurance brokers fill those gaps. For the last 18 months, we've been working with open badges as a means to reward people. And we've been having a lot of success with it and finding it a great way to engage learners in the professional world.
And so the learning that's going on with your audience of insurance brokers there in the UK, is that required ongoing professional development?
Yeah, I mean, the regulator doesn't say that they have to measure and keep a record of their professional development. The Chartered Insurance Institute would say 35 hours per year as their recommendation. However, it is good practice. So what the regulator says is that you must be competent to the job that you're set out to do. So everybody in this country should get, a job description, job specification, which says what it is that they're meant to do, and they have to evidence to the regulator that they are maintaining competence and doing something about keeping their learning up to date.
And so with the shift to using digital badges on your platform, can you just talk us a little bit through why that shift happened and what problem RWA was looking to solve?
Yeah, I mean, what we're looking at ways in which we can reward people and evidence their learning on assessment. Typically in the past, we've always used online certificates. The problem with those is that all the evidence is that somebody's done something, they've done an action. So maybe they've attended a training course or they've done some learning online. But all the certificate will tell them is that they've actioned it, they've done a pass or a fail. There's no criteria behind it which says why they've got it. What badges has allowed us to do is to evidence that criteria and that a baseline has been met. So for every assessment that we do, we set a baseline of 70% on the assessment. So if a learner achieves that, then they'll get issued with the badge to say they've met that minimum baseline score. So it's a great way of evidencing that for their employer, for the regulator, for us as their compliance consultants, but also it's a great way to engage them in the learning because they get that tangible reward at the end of it.
And you'd mentioned that you've seen just a lot of successes very early on. Do you mind just sharing some of those numbers about just what some of that growth has looked like?
Yeah, I mean, over the last 12 months, we've been issuing open badges for about 18 months now. Progress at the start was slow while we got the message out there as to why they're there and how they work. We're now issuing about 4,400 badges a month. So the last 12 months, I think we've issued 37,000 badges across the system. So we should see a lot more growth this year. And that's over about 250 courses that we have online. So for every course, there's the opportunity to earn a badge. I think our biggest badge earner is somewhere in the region of 226 badges she's earned, which is a great achievement. And that's in 1 year. So it's showing that she's regularly going back into the system, maintaining her professional development. She's engaged with it, she likes the badges, and it's also a good way to encourage peers in a firm to want to earn a badge that a colleague may have earned, or even to have some element of competition in the room. So it works really, really well for us. And as a result of that, I think the last 12 months, we've seen about 419% increase in the usage on the platform, and that's based on site clicks. So every month we monitor all the clicks that are going on and what people are doing, and we're seeing a massive amount of growth on that as a result.
And so just to clarify, and that massive growth is of 400+% is based on the badges versus the previous
yeah, if you look at where we were 12 months ago, the system was it didn't have nearly as many features as it has now, including badges. So what we're doing is we're using now, rewarding people, and we're trying to create this idea around rewards. So it's not, are you a pass or a fail? It's what can we do? We're taking away. We're not calling them exams. We call them assessments. They're not tests. They're quizzes. Things like that, which makes it more fun. People engage with that. I think once they see the badges and how we present the two of them, what they can do with those, we've set up systems where they can share them on social networks. We've created an appraisal pack which they can download as a PDF to take to their appraisals with their supervisors, and it evidences everything that they've been doing, so they can be something they're proud of. They can show to people and evidence what they've been doing, really. So it works really, really well for us.
And when you speak about someone earning over 200 badges, I'm guessing that goes well above and beyond the 35 hours that is generally expected as a professional in the UK. And so, and are you sort of anecdotally able to infer that folks are just more motivated to learn in this way, and so they're opting into more professional learning than they were previously?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think if you look at what motivates people in the business world anyway, it's not always money. It's not always the carrot and the stick. If we can give people those tools to help them with mastery and autonomy and things like that, and let them take ownership of their development, then I think they will engage with it. Half of our courseware is technical around insurance, and half of it is around business skills and personal development. So it's not all in the professional space. We want to encourage people to learn more about business skills, about leadership, about mindfulness, all these kind of things. And so giving them those tools, they can go online, they can browse the catalogue themselves, and they can find information that they want to look for to make themselves better in the professional space. Is a great way to motivate people.
Yeah, and something that you had mentioned to me in our email exchanges was a little bit about your thoughts on formative and summative assessment. And I think you sort of allude to that with just your take on assessments and quizzes versus tests. And can you maybe dive a little deeper into your thoughts around formative and summative assessment?
Yeah, I mean, summative, we've seen a lot of platforms in the UK in that kind of traditional summative LMS sort of route. Death by learning online, looking at slides, looking at PowerPoint. It doesn't really engage people. If you do the assessment at the end, having done the learning, all it really shows in our point of view is that you've gone some short-term recall, you can regurgitate what you've just learned, but what is there to really show that 6 months down the line, 12 months down the line, you've remembered that information. Now, going back to the formative route, what we tend to do is we always assess people first, so we always get a baseline knowledge for them. So I'll do 10, 20 multiple choice questions online. That will tell us what they know and what they don't know. What we're then saying to people is to identify where your gaps are. Don't worry about what you do know, look at what you don't know. So go into the learning, find the bits that you need to fill those gaps in, and then do the assessment at the end and show an increase in learning. Now what badges allow us to do then is that in 12 months' time that badge would expire. They have to go back in 12 months' time and redo that assessment again to re-earn that badge.
Interesting. And out of curiosity, with the formative assessment and what you were speaking about earlier with motivation, do you think that those two are pretty linked, that because of the formative versus summative, there's shorter sprints, there's more frequent opportunities? And so does that kind of motivation piece really play in to the efficacy of the badges?
Yeah, I think it does. I think we've done some analysis. Roughly, to do 10 multiple choice questions takes about 7 minutes on average. Some will be shorter, some take a bit longer, depending on the complexity of the assessment. But what it allows somebody to do is to say, right, well, I'm going to challenge myself, because people do like doing quizzes and game shows and all these kind of things. So it allows them to find out what they can do. Our system then benchmarks them against their peers, so immediately they can see how they score on a graph against everybody else in the population. So immediately, if they're only getting, for example, 50% initially, they may think, oh, it's not very good. But we can show them immediately that actually their peers are only getting 40%. So they're doing okay. What we'll then do is show them what they got wrong, so they can identify then what they need to do. They can go into the learning. Potentially, they can just find that information rather than sitting through an hour-long boring online course. They can find the gaps, go back, reassess themselves, and they can do that as many times as they like. So it's fully open for them. They can go back, they can interrogate the results 3 years down the line, see how they did. Everything is recorded, every click for them.
That sounds really engaging. And you alluded there to the analytics that you're collecting. Can you go a little bit more into that? Just what sort of user analytics you're collecting, what data you have, and what it's telling you about the learning and the badge impact.
Yeah, I'll just get that back up. There we are. Can you see me? Sorry. Yes, ask the question again now. Sorry.
No, not a problem. It's a little technical malfunction there. Just wondering about the user analytics that you are collecting, and what sort of data points do you have available to you, and what stories is the data telling?
Yeah, well, we record every single click on the site, so we can see exactly where they're accessing, what assessments they're doing, what courses they're doing, what reports they're looking at. From that, we can look at a whole raft of reports. So we can look at how much access on that time of day. Are they working from home? We reckon about 3% of our usage is now at home in the evenings and the weekends. So we're getting people in the professional space going online, working 10, 11 o'clock at night doing their learning. Now that's a good thing for us because it shows they are engaging with it. We're recording, because we're using the same assessments for the 7,000 people we've got on the system, we're able to benchmark them against each other. So we can say, right, this area, clearly in the industry, there are some knowledge gaps that we need to look at. So we can create new learning material which will fill those gaps. We can do face-to-face learning. We can then give that information to their supervisors. So supervisors can log onto the system and get a whole raft of reports around how their teams are doing. And they can split those into different cohorts themselves and analyze that information. So again, it's engaging the training and competence managers to want to engage with the data themselves. So we give them access to all that. Which again is really important in engagement piece, a motivational piece. We can run all sorts of reports. So we can look at, I think we've got who's earning what, which badges aren't being earned. We know, for example, if we push a mail shot out to all our users with information or a reminder to log in and do their learning, that we see a huge spike in usage that day. So there's all sorts of things we can use with that data.
That's really fascinating. Can you talk a little bit more about maybe what some of that you would hope other educational badge issuing platforms and LMSs can learn from the work you all have already done, as well as would be curious to know any other just sort of anecdotes you have of things that you all have learned from the data and then been able to immediately put into practice to change whether it's the courses you're offering or how you're offering them.
Yeah, I think it's a question of not automating everything. For us, we give all our clients their account managers. They have a real person there on the computer, on a phone, on an email, who can help them, remind them, and coach them along. I think the danger of a lot of these systems is that you log in and you're left to your own devices. And again, you tend to lose a lot of motivation there. So if you can find a way that you can engage on a personal level with people, and it may be you can remind them to log in on a regular basis, give them tips. We've just launched our campaign for this year to try and get our users to sign up to a New Year's resolution to do their 35-hour CPD this year. So what we're saying to them is, great, join the club, join Team CPD, and we will get out there and we'll remind you every month and give you tips and help you with your learning. Because it's very difficult, I think, in the professional market to find time to always keep up to date with these things. I think it's also important to know it's not all done online. Majority of what you learn is on the job. It's not a computer screen. You've got your peers, you've got your supervisors. So you can do the assessments online, but it may be that you fill the learning offline. It could be you go on a course, you talk to somebody, you ask somebody the question or the answers to the questions. So it's about realizing that the online LMS system isn't the be all and end all, but it's a tool to assist.
I love that. And one of the things I really, if you might touch on just a little bit more, is some of the sort of nudge mechanisms that you have in place how you're getting people to continue to engage and regularly engage, is what that looks like.
Well, the system itself, I mean, we allow, the system will send notifications out to people via email. We give them ownership of that. If they don't like notifications from the system, they can turn it off. But they can also set how often they receive them. So they might want a daily update, they may want a weekly one. So if, for example, they own a badge, it takes 30 minutes for the system to run that report, send the badges out via email, and it says, well done, great. And we can put a personal message to that, which says, well done on your study, keep going, keep going. With the account manager role that we have somebody there who is available on a personal level to G them up, nudge them along at any time. And then we work with the supervisors. The supervisors every month will get a report which says, this is what your staff are doing on the system. here are your top motivated learners, and here are the ones towards the bottom. Perhaps those are the ones you should be talking to on a more regular basis and trying to motivate them into learning as well.
And have you noticed what the most effective tool is? Is there a single metric you have that you know this kind of notification is gets X% of folks to immediately go and log in?
Yeah, I mean, we use email contacts. Once a month, we will send something out which says your new assessments are live this month. Don't forget to log in. We keep it fresh. We keep it lots of animations and cartoons and colourful. So we're trying to remind people that it's not drab and dreary, boring learning. We're trying to make it fun, and we're trying to motivate people that way. So using a lot of positive cues and word and technology as well.
And sort of shifting to the challenges that you face, I'm curious, in the education, the primary, secondary, and higher ed education space here in the United States, one of our challenges is a sort of chicken and the egg issue of educating human resources to value and appreciate these micro-credentials. And do we do that in advance of students even having these credentials, or do we need a bunch of students already having the credentials before the hiring managers and HR professionals are going to be really educated on these? And I'm curious, is that an issue for you, or because it was sort of more of a smaller shift from the traditional certificates, was it something that was already pretty familiar in the industry?
I mean, my view is that I'm an employer. I see a lot of CVs, resumes come across my desk. When I interview people, they could be university graduates, but my experience is they haven't got the experience of how to write a CV or resume. They're not very experienced at attending an interview. And I think these are core skills I'm looking for as an employer if I want to hire somebody. Now, my view, I'm doing some work with some high schools in Wales, is could we work on a local level with the employers? So identify who are the key employers in that local area. That may be hotel groups, it could be pub chains, the sorts of jobs people will get outside of school. Working with them and say, look, let's develop a framework for your company where you're looking for key skills that you can take children out of education that fit nicely into that process of hiring new employees at that level. If you can engage them with the employers and say, right, what framework do you need? And it might be customer service skills, it might be working at till, cash handling, all these kind of things. You can then develop a framework with assessment and learning with badges as the reward and evidence. So the person in education could choose to do those, which shows commitment. They're motivated to do it. It is extracurricular, but then when they go to the job interviews, all they're doing is applications. They can say, I have ticked all your criteria to meet the stage of even getting this far. I think that'll be a really good way of bridging that gap between how do you get the HR managers to want to engage with the reward system. They're almost setting it themselves what those criteria are for them.
I think that is really great advice that you give there, Tom. And in just looking ahead to your own work at RWA eLearning, what are the remaining challenges that you're dealing with or anticipate needing to address in the near, intermediate, and even long-term future?
I think for us, it's just the growth element. We're developing a business skills platform now, which we'll launch outside of the industry. So that is purely for people who want to learn new business skills, leadership skills, which they don't normally have or have access to. Working with schools, education, how can we bridge that gap, which you're talking about? And I think there is some interest there, but it's going to be a hard slog because it's such a vast area to go into. And you'll always get pushback, I think, from those who don't want to go down these modern routes of rewards and systems. They want to go the traditional route. I don't know how universities will look at it. Obviously, they're commercial entities as well, so they need to look at how their funding models work. And obviously, for them, it's bums on seats in a face-to-face space. That's how they get paid. So really, our challenge now is just to keep on looking at how we can motivate people and engage them and keep them coming back to our systems. And I think it is always going to be a good mix of technology versus face-to-face and personal touch.
Awesome. And one final question for you is just pivoting from challenges. What are the sort of just most exciting things on the horizon for you in the digital badging space?
I think it's now, we're seeing people talking about it more in the UK. In Wales, there's a lot of going on around the digital space and adult education as well. So how can public sector start using them as well as private sector? How can we increase the skills gap and get people into jobs? How can we increase the skills gap and get people out of their homes and do more in the communities and things like that? So for me, I think as long as we can keep finding the criteria behind the badges and stop people thinking about, you can just issue them for the smallest thing, I think there needs to be some element of achievement and what people have done to achieve them. The other problem we're facing at the moment is portability. Backpacks, all these kind of things. It would be nice if somebody could find a simple way that they can upload it onto a CV or resume, or they can put it on a WordPress blog or something like that, so they can really start telling people about it. Once they can get it online, then obviously the message will spread. More and more people will start looking at it. Hey, how did you get that badge? I want one. Those kind of things. Those are the things we're seeing in this sort of space that we've got, this one nucleus. But to see it broaden out, I think we need more and more people sharing them on social media and other avenues as well.
Awesome. Well, Tom, I want to just personally thank you so much for taking the time to share your story with us this afternoon, and just thank you for your time. And I know I learned a lot, and I hope everybody else watching this does too. I am Noah Geisel, Senior G on the Twitter. He is Tom Wood. He is the real Tom Wood on Twitter, and his company is RWA eLearning. Tom, thank you so much for your time.
No problem at all, Noah. Thanks for that.